Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja. This 1988 Data East side-scrolling action beat-em-up is about as fun as a cheaply made low-budget movie from the era. It's clunky and rough around the edges, but it's also pretty fun if you don't take it, or yourself, too seriously.
I'm bad!
Oh yeah, you are. Now you don't have to dig too deep into Bad Dudes to realize that it's just good old 80s cheese. Straight out of the gate, you're told by this aviator's wearing some of a bitch that President Ronnie has been kidnapped by ninjas and questions you, the player, if you're a bad enough dude to rescue him. Now I can't speak for you, but I know that I'm gonna try. Good old Ronnie needs my help. Hell, he needs our help. There are 2 muscle shirt wearing playable characters. There are 7 stages. There are weapons, and health regenerates when you down a soda. Nice. Both of these dudes are clones, seemingly created artificially in a neon vat of 80s stereotypes, filled with ecto-cooler and squeeze-its. They wear high-top shoes, fashionable faded denim, and aggressively flex at the very thought of Billy Ocean. The gameplay in Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja borrows heavily from most of the other 2D action brawlers at the time. Similarly to titles like Shinobi or Rolling Thunder, your bad dude can bounce from high platforms to low ones by pressing the jump button in conjunction with a direction from the joystick. One thing that has always bothered me is that there are no invincibility frames when you're transitioning planes. You'll get used to it after a while, but your dude is a bit sluggish, so it's not always easy to get out of the way of the quicker ninja enemies and bosses. A powerful punch is possible if you hold the action down a bit, but I've never been able to successfully land blows on enemies with this. It takes a bit to wind up, and the action is usually just too frantic. I've always found that punching and kicking gets the job done suitably well. There are a lot of cool, well-animated offensive moves in your arsenal, and it feels really good landing a hit on any of those tenacious ninjas. If that's not enough, power-ups in the form of weapons work well to keep the seemingly endless swarms of baddies at bay. You'll be really trying to keep the knife and nunchucks in your hands as long as possible because they help a lot. Enemies come in a few distinct shapes and sizes. There's not a ton of variety, but they are color-coded and identifiable enough to offer up a challenge, especially since they come after you in different waves. What I like is that you don't have to think too hard. You'll get to know that this particular ninja is going to throw a projectile, for instance, and that this one bounces about like he's on a pogo stick. After a few playthroughs, your reactions will be second nature, and it's entertaining enough for the 25 to 30 minute duration of the game. The bosses range from competently designed to piss easy, but most of them pose a tough but fair challenge for newcomers. Karnov's here because this is a Data East game and that's just sort of their thing, but you'll also come up against a spastic little guy, a ninja who clones himself, or herself, your failed ecto-cooler experiment of a brother who prefers the angry sounds of Dawkin to the sweet, sweet, sexy serenades of Billy Ocean, as well as a few more. A lot of them have the habit of going off screen frequently, which is admittedly one of my biggest punchy-kicky game pet peeves, but they're all pretty fair. Well, I mean, all of them except for this guy. Oh man, it's been over 30 years, and I still can't reliably take down this jerk twat without hemorrhaging life. You'll need to fight him twice too, which is a pain, as this game has a boss rush at the end, though these big bads go down significantly quicker the second time, so that's a bonus. The final boss is also pretty tricky, but I mean, he's the last guy, so it's gotta be a challenge, right? Kazusa Hara and Hiroaki Yoshida composed this score, but sadly it's pretty light on tracks. What's here is memorable and awesome, but you only get 2 stage pieces. The one I just played, entitled Greased Lightning, and the main level theme, called Fist of Fury. There are 7 tunes in total, counting the regular boss and final antagonist's music, but the rest are little more than end stage jingles. They're all awesome, but after a while you'll be really wanting to hear something new. The sound effects are pretty muffled, but they're passable. Everyone and their grandma has talked about the I'm bad thing, and the rest is about on par with that. It's a 1988 arcade game, so everything sits either super high or super low when it comes to sound, likely to cut through the chatter of dozens of competing arcade machines and walls of cigarette smoke. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we'll realize that Bad Dudes is a pretty average game at best all around. Sure, it looks a bit better than average at times and the animations are good, but the reason it has endured is due to its schlocky story. It's the video game equivalent of a good, bad movie. In a lot of ways, it's the Lone Wolf McQuade or Silent Rage of the Chuck Norris film era, and that's quite alright with me, because it's about as entertaining as those as well. Or any flick distributed by Canon, for that matter. I'm glad that these Data East games have been preserved under the Johnny Turbo arcade moniker for modern audiences, because sometimes it's good to be bad.
I'm bad!
You said it, bad dude. You said it. There are a lot of home ports of Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, mainly for home computers, such as the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64. The Amiga had a version as well, but I have no means of capturing footage from that machine, and emulation is a real bitch. I spent most of my time with the arcade original, but I still remember playing this thing many moons ago on the 8-bit Nintendo. I didn't even know it existed until I was at a birthday party where someone had the cart booted up. I'm pretty sure the kid rented it after seeing that it was a 2-player experience on the box, and he thought like, oh hey, everyone at this party is really going to enjoy this game, but unfortunately, it was one of those weird, misleading ones, like the first Double Dragon port to the system, where you're forced to take turns. Man, that kid must have been super disappointed, and I remember being the only one at the party who actually enjoyed the game. Bad Dudes is an okay port that sticks extremely close to the arcade original, for better or for worse. All of the stages are included. I mean, it's an admirable effort, but perhaps they should have taken some liberties, because there are a lot of design decisions that just don't translate well here. Firstly, there's a lot of flicker going on, and the action feels really choppy, often resulting in some pretty poor hit detection at times. It's also really tough to see enemy projectiles in this one because of it. I don't know what it is, but I can't get a jump kick to land on most enemies without taking damage myself. The bosses are all here in full 8-bit glory, but they are easily cheesed. Personally, I don't have a problem with this because getting hit takes off so much damage, so I'll take any break I can get.
That little guy hasn't done anything yet. Look at him. He's gonna do something, and you know it's gonna be good.
I'm bad.
The scrolling in the stages is abysmal, like embarrassingly slow. There are a few stages where everything just stops in order to allow the screen to move down to continue. Yikes. The button layout on the NES is backwards, which is a real pain. It's always confusing to me when developers mess this up. Maybe I'm super picky or persnickety, but this really sours an experience for me, and often makes me flippantly write off a game as incompetently made. I mean, how hard is it to get the buttons right, dude? Obviously, due to hardware limitations, there couldn't be as many baddies on the screen, but stages never feel too sparse as a result, which is good. As for the sprites and animations, everything looks pretty good, limited but decent, though someone really needs to change your bad dude's diaper. I'm pretty sure it's hindering his mobility. All in all, Bad Dudes on the NES is a faithful port, often to its detriment. It's an enjoyable experience once you learn to work around the game's flaws, and if you can ignore the fairly incompetent programming at times. One thing's for sure, the music sounds absolutely incredible in this one. The transport truck and train theme is one of my favorite tracks on the system. It's super loud, punchy, and just awesome all around, even if it is in mono. No matter how you slice it, Bad Dudes is just a ton of fun to play. It might not be a classic like some of Sega's arcade games from the era, but it's memorable, silly, and entertaining for a quick romp. There's a reason it has stood the test of time and continues to be repackaged for modern audiences. It's a good type of bad.
I'm bad!
Well said.